information in. The fact of the matter is that's becoming much more real. If I could, very briefly, I did put it here, just show you what this looks like in reality. It might help a little bit with the understanding. It looks like this. It's a simplified version, but it's web-based. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at a whole lot of things, a whole lot of scenarios, a whole lot of possibilities that might happen in the environment, based on politics, economy, social trend changes, technology, legal, and green environment. So they're all color-coded. So all of these nodes contains bits and pieces of information which was fed in to the system from this side. And then what you really need to measure all the time is the probability, the likelihood of this happening, and if it happens, what the impact is. And then all you need to do is you build in the variance as and when things change. So let's say that there's changes and some of those things move into an earlier state. It will typically do that. Or a later state. Or it's not going to happen at all. Or the impact's going to be worse. So you have this kind of variance taking place all the time. If it's too confusing, you can isolate it as well. You say, no, I'm only going to look at politics. What if all of that happens in politics? Earlier, later, etc. So you have this pocket of information feeding into the system live all the time. That gives you an indication of probability of happening and impact on the business. Now the impact on the business, once again, is then indicated by means of the overlap. So you will have an early warning sign, either orange, take note. BlackBerry is a very good example of an organization that did not have this. The official statistic at the moment, it's very interesting, in South Africa, I'm not sure what it is globally, is that at the moment, 78% of everybody that owns a Samsung, up until 18 months ago, owned a BlackBerry. 18 months. You lose an entire industry in 18 months. Or that, or the green one. And then what we try to do is we try to put the intelligence matrix on top of that. So what this gives you, what that gives you constantly is it contextualizes the context. So it helps the CEO. So as opposed to the CEO just acting, saying, whoa, let's just see what context are we in right now. Complicated, okay, well then let's get in the expert. Simple, alright, that's fine. Let's break it down, simplify, let's take a decision on the basis of that. Complex, whoa, step back. A little bit more probing here, a little bit more investigating here. Chaotic, let's hit the floor. Close the business, sell out while we still can. And ladies and gentlemen, that's basically what I came to tell you today. It's a combination between a changing business environment, taking the information feed, making it live, and putting a decision-making matrix on those changes to help you to make sure that your strategy remains appropriate and correct. Thank you very much. Questions? Yes? Am I seeing a hand? You're just waving? Yes?
All right. In the business world or any in personal life also, decisions are taken after simplifying and analyzing. And any decision taken in business world, you have to give a time for that to prove whether this decision was correct or wrong. Considering the pastel and the move, the chart we were showing, and the live information and quick information and taking a quick decision, how good it would be and how positive or negative impact it can bear and bring to the business.
Okay, I'm going to answer you by just putting up this model again. Remember, the decisions we take, some of them are reactive when we realize that we should have changed but we haven't, but most of them are still based on scenarios. Remember this, this chart that you're seeing here, in terms of impact and probability, is all still possible scenarios that's happening. So the way in which you foresee the change is you feed information into your scenario planning all the time. And that picture might change. remember in the beginning I said first you scan, then you build a scenario, and then you take the strategy selection. Now the strategy selection you take on the basis of a possible scenario. That scenario that you build at that particular point in time, you've built based on the information that you had then. If the information changes, the scenario might change. So it's really the scenario, the change in scenario and the probability of that scenario materializing and the potential impact it has on your business that preempts whether you should adapt your strategy or not. It's not really a case of I'm doing the business and something changed and now I see it and now I need to change my business or make a different strategic decision. No, you measure it against scenario planning all the time. And depending on the availability and accessibility of information, sometimes it's possible for you to foresee the change and make the necessary adaptation. But in real practice it also happens that organizations still realize it too late. That's why I use the BlackBerry as an example. So to answer your question, it's still based on the possibility of scenarios happening. It's not based on, I didn't see this and now I acted too late and I can't change it.
So it's more of a keeping an eye open and
keeping an eye
open and
keeping an eye open. The difference is just that there's much more of a focus on the actual scenario. But this is the virtual world. This is still the probability. So yes, I plan, organizations tend to plan and then take a strategic decision and then off they go. And then they're not sure whether things are going to change or not. So what you do is you take the middle space, the scenario planning space, and you give it a canvas that can indicate to you the constant change all the time. That's how you stay ahead of it. Answer your question? More? Yes.
Probably I'll ask, rephrase that question. What is the correlation between the organizational budget and strategic decisions?
What is the what? So just say that again.
The budget versus strategic decisions. Because strategic decision is risk factor is too high. Because environment is always changing, and decision what you take is for that particular moment. But time is flying. I mean, time is going.
Yeah.
So the decision what you make today is not valid for tomorrow. So it's not practical to take, as rightly said, you cannot take decision every day.
No, you
So
can't.
what is the relation between the budget, how much you have to budget, versus a strategic decision?
Look, there's not a direct line in terms of what the relation is between the two, but what we are saying is that at some point in time I need to take a decision. All we're saying is that you need to constantly measure the decision. So the same goes for the budget. If I've done my annual budget and I'm of the opinion that that's now the budget and so be it, then I'm actually still thinking that everything is going to be stable for this next 12 months. I have to have a variance in the budget, and I have to have the willingness in terms of budgetary allocation to, if my scenario changes radically 2 months down the line, to review the budget. All we're asking is, you're doing a lot of it already. You have a quarterly review. You have a biannual review, budget review. All we're asking is to speed those times up. To not necessarily stick to specific time frames during which you're going to measure that, but to rather have something that you can keep your eye on a daily basis and determine whether it's necessary to have a review at a sooner intervention or not. But it's very difficult if you have something like a budget and the budget then dictates what you're going to do, because the budget might be stable whilst the environment is flexible. I don't know whether I'm answering your question.
Do you have any study based any research?
On the correlation between those two? No, not as I'm standing here. But I can look for you, but I don't have something as I'm standing here. It's really, the challenge here is the changing environment and what to do with the business within. Because the business, as I said earlier, your internal informational component, that's fairly stable. Because it's something that's within your control. I mean, as we're sitting here, we know that tomorrow probably everybody that came to work today will be back again tomorrow. And the budget that's been allocated in terms of spend will be spent. It's a fairly stable pipeline. The challenge is what to do if the environment changes. Do we have levels of flexibility within? And you'll only also start to really revise the appropriateness of your strategy if the customers change. Might also be that the environment changes and your customers' needs and wants don't change. So all of a sudden you have an economic downturn and everybody goes, "Ooh, nobody's going to buy from Spinneys anymore, we're too expensive." On the contrary, your customers might not be as affected by the economic downturn. So then you don't change the strategy. So also be careful to think if the environment changes, we need to change. It's really if the environment changes, more specifically how that impacts on our customer base. They will change. They will bring about the change. Because that's the only good time to make a strategic change, is when the customer demand fluctuates or that changes. For the rest, you keep your ship sailing, no matter how stormy the waters. Okay? More. I'm just warming up. Or are you hungry?